Today we will look at a predefined method of the string class. So as you know, string class has many useful methods, but this one is in particular can be really beneficial. So let's talk about a problem. Suppose you are asked to enter uh, three names which are all separated by space, or let's suppose you are asked to enter three numbers, so each separated by space, right? And all these are separate, completely different from one another. So there are many possible ways we can approach this, but the easiest way is to use the split method. So let's talk about this. So now you have a problem. You have to take three number as input and then add them all up, right? And the problem is you can't read three numbers at once. Like let's try reading a number. So I've created a variable called num, and I'm gonna try to read it. So enter num. So and let's simply call the input dot next function, next int function. I mean, okay. So now it's asking for a num. Let's enter number. Let's enter 11. Then after a space, let's enter 44. So as you can see, it has read it, but it's not going to be the same thing. Let me show you. Let's print the value of num. So let's see what happens now. So let's enter two numbers. Let's say 10 and 20. So as you can see, it is only reading the first number. It is ignoring the rest. And similarly, if you enter any type of number which is not valid, it's going to throw an error, like as you can see here, it is throwing an exception, input mismatch, right? So to resolve this problem, to read multiple values at once, we use the split method. So split method is used to split a string into an array. So as you know, string is any text. So first of all, the very first point is that string method works only, method works on arrays only, so the strings only, since strings are the only data type in which we can enter anything we want aside from char, but char has a limit. So we are stuck with strings for now. So strings, now let's create a new string, right? Let's create a new string and let's call it text. So now we will ask the user to enter three numbers or enter numbers separated by space. So now user will enter a number separated by space. Then we are gonna call the next line function to read the full text from the user. So let's call the next line function simply. So now we have called it. Now we have called the next line function. After that, let's print our text variable. I mean text string. So I'm gonna simply print it. Let's run it. So as you can see, it is asking for numbers separated by space. So I'm gonna enter 10 first. Then after a space, I'm gonna enter 20. Now 30. So right. So as you can see, we got our numbers, but they are stored in a string. So we can't really work with strings unless we build a complex logic which will be hard for you to understand. So let's use the split method to make this simpler. So what can we do? What if we have these numbers each as an array element? So suppose we have an array. So we have three numbers. It user can enter any amount of numbers he wants. But now let's suppose that it has three numbers, right? And user has entered 10, 20, 30. So now our string has 10, 20, and 30. Suppose we create an array. So the first element of array will be 10, second 20, and the third one will be 30. So how we can do that? We can use split method. So first we need to create an array. So array must be string. So since this text is string, so each string that will be created, uh, so each element will be a separate string now. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So let's create a string called numbers, and I am not giving it any size. I'm just declaring it, since we don't know what is the size entered by a user. And let's assign the let's first call the split method. To call that, first you have to write the object, which is the text, and then you have to write split. And in the regex part, you have to put how they are split. So if I put an empty space, it means that the characters will be split by spaces. So now in that case, uh, it will look at the string, it will see that first we have 10, then it will store 10, it will check that there is 10, then it will see there is a space. So it will store 10 into the zeroth index of the array. Then it will see that we have 20 now, then after 20 there is a space. So it will store 20 into the first index, and then it will see that we have 30, and after 30 there is nothing, so it will store 30 in the second index, 0, 1, 2. So this is how our array will be created. And we have to, since this method returns an array, so this is a built-in method, and it returns an array back. So now we have to store the result into an array. So now we need to store the result into an array. Since we didn't pass it an array, we passed it a simple string, right? So now we created an array called numbers dot split. So now we got our numbers. So which are the numbers entered by a user, and each element is separated now by a space. So let's call the print array function to print this array. Let's see what it looks like. So as you can see, uh, here I have the print array function, which takes a string x argument, right? And then it simply prints the array. This is a simple printing logic, you are already familiar with it. So let's run our program. So let's enter 10, 20, and 30. Each is separated by a space. And as you can see, let me remove this. So let's get rid of this. We don't need it anymore. And let's run it again. Let's enter our values 10, 20, and 30. So as you can see, now our array each element is separated now. So let's try to print a simple value at zeroth index, right? I'm gonna call it numbers. So here I'm printing the entire array, that is the each element of the array. So we got array of size 3, and these are the elements it contains. So oops, I have to call the println function to show you more. So now it will print the first element, whatever it is. Let's enter 100, 140. Oh, I've entered 100 only. Oops. Let's enter 144, 77. So now it is printing the zeroth element, which is 100. So now we have created an array. But the problem right now is These values are strings, so all these values which are getting printed here, they are into a string array. We need to convert them into number. So to convert a value into number, suppose we have a string. First I want to show you normal conversation. Suppose we have a string called s, and in string 1 to 3 is stored. So if you want to convert this into a number, you have to use the integer dot parseInt. So now you have to pass it the string. So now it will convert the value into an integer, but store the uh, we have to store the result into a num, since this method returns an integer, and we can go ahead and print that num. Let's see what happens now. So let's ignore this. As you can see, we are getting 1 to 3 printed here. Since we can have any integer, if you have illegal character, like suppose you have like this symbol between. Let's see what happens then. So as you can see, we got an exception. Numbers must be it must be integer value. So this is how you convert an integer a string to an integer. But let's look at our problem. We have to convert each element, so we need three numbers. So first I'm gonna call the dot percent, and I'm gonna pass it. So first I'm gonna convert the number which is stored at the 0th index. Then similarly I'm gonna create three more integers, and I'm gonna pass all the values I need. So I'm gonna print all these values, and I'm gonna create a sum variable which will create the sum of all these three. So now we got our three integers which will be entered by the user. By using this methods, we converted them from strings to int, and let's simply print the sum. So let's run our program now. It should work perfectly. Um, so first I've entered 1, then I've entered 100, then I've entered 19. So as you can see, it is giving us 120, which is the what we needed. It is converting them into integers. It is converting element at each index into an integer, and then it is adding them. But suppose the user entered what should I say, like 50 values. What will you do now? In that case, we need to build a logic which will be applicable for the whole length, right? So we will use a for loop to calculate sum of. So what we need to do, we have our array here, right? We have created our array here, right? Our array has been created, numbers which contains actually first uh, we need to go through this whole array. So this is our array. This is our array numbers. It has all the numbers, but they are all strings. So we need to access each element and convert them into string, integer. Sorry. So I'm gonna use numbers dot length, since I don't know the exact size of it. I'm gonna do I plus plus, and for each iteration first, let's create two variables. One is called temp, which will temporarily store, and the other one is called sum. Let's give sum 0. Both are 0 initially. So first I will convert the value at the ith index to an integer. So I'm gonna pass it numbers I. So now each element will be converted into an integer. In each iteration, one element will be converted, and then the next the one. And so in each iteration, one element is converted into an integer, and then I'm gonna use the plus equal to add each temp. So I'm converting each integer into each string into a number, each string element into a number, then I'm adding it to the sum. So this statement is like equivalent to this. So sum is equal to sum plus temp. So and in the end we can simply print the sum. So let's enter multiple values here. I don't know, let's enter 11, 44, 77, 22, 10, 44, 88, 77. Now we have lot of numbers. So it has perfectly calculated the sum, that is 373. You can check that. And so that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching.